It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Marc Williams.
Hey, and I'm Cathey Armillas. Welcome to It Is About to Go Down. We have Ian Williams in the house. Okay, Ian is amazing. He is the owner of Dead Stock Coffee. He started Dead Stock Coffee as this really cool place for community. Now, you might be thinking, oh, cool, coffee shops are community. That is not Ian Williams' level. He is all about community. So it's really fitting that today what we're going to chat about is what really is community. Because honestly, that's just a word we hear a lot, and it definitely means different things to different people. But when he started Dead Stock, he wanted it to be a sneaker-based themed coffee shop, and he wanted to get people in and really, really get deep into community. And that is Ian Williams. So Ian, welcome to the show. Let's talk community.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me. You know, I see my brother from another up here. You know what I'm saying? Williams gang. We out here. Hold on, let me get the palette right. Hold up. I know we're gonna be talking a lot, so you had me stretch my jaw muscles earlier and everything. I think I'm prepared. I think I'm ready.
Most definitely.
Ian, so the place that we were talking about starting was community. Means a lot of things, a lot of people. You do community really well. But in thinking about how to pass this on as a palatable idea for other people, where do we start? And what should we be telling other people about community?
I mean, I don't know. It's like one of those things when somebody's like, "Hey, tell me a joke, funny guy," and you're like, "I don't really have a joke, right?" Or when they say, I don't know, when people like ask you like, "Oh, why do you do blah 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 this way?" You're like, "I don't know. This is just how I do it," right? Or, to get a little bit more serious, when people are like, "What's it like to be a Black coffee shop owner?" I'm like, "I've been Black my whole life. I don't know any different." Right. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I can talk about community, but I really just talk about it the way that I talk about it because I just don't really know any different. For me, it's all about just the idea of, like they say, like a church is when like two or more people come together to rejoice. Right. So it's like the same, like it's when two or more people, just have the opportunity to interface. And to me, it's best done actually face to face instead of like, of course, this Zoom is great, but we also, like as much as you can to be in person, and to really be able to share and be your true self, whether it be doing something new, like sports, or like if you haven't done it before, or how the power of sport can bring people together, just like food and music. But just like the community is all over the place. We just don't always look at it like community. We don't think of people at a concert like a community, but it's all people who have a similar interest, right? So it's like that in itself is like while you're waiting for the band, you're talking about the band. You might also start talking about some other stuff, and then next thing you know, you might ask somebody on a date or whatever, right? You might start hanging out because you realize you have similar interests. Like you just become, all these things have the power to bring communities together, and that was what Dead Stock really is about. Is like bringing people together. It's not so much about coffee or even about shoes. It's about people, just people who have a specific, liking toward coffee or shoes, but it's really about anybody and anything.
I'm wondering, I hear you on that. And I already got a number of questions, Kath. You know how my brain is always, it's just got a big question mark on it. Why do you want to create community?
I don't know. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I mean, of course, I've done my fair share, therapy and things. And so you always go back to like when you were a kid. They're always like, oh, things stem from like when you're a kid. And I mean, I guess I could probably find something in there from when I was a kid where I feel like I didn't have it, or But I think I've always just been seeking out the thing that I've always been seeking out the thing that I like. And then I just realized when I get to that thing that I like, and I understand that there are things that other people like, you just realize that there's just opportunities all around. But I don't know if I don't know. I don't know. That's a very good question. You're gonna have me out here writing books now, trying to figure out what the
He's like, I'm
the
gonna figure
reasoning
it
is.
out.
Yeah, I'm
write a
gonna
book.
figure it out. Yeah, we might maybe by the end, but by the end of this talk, but I don't know. I just think that there are people who need people, and there's so many things that are going on in the world right now, and even the people who say that they don't like people still like to be off to the side or around people, whether it be observing or whatever. They still like to be acknowledged, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just like a people guy, like observing what people do, like the decisions that they make. It's just like, people are cool and they're weird at the same time. And it's just like, I guess you could call it me judging people, sure. But I just think it's fascinating.
Ian, you said something that I really love. Mark, did you catch when he said people need people? You caught that? Yeah, I know. You and I, like, we always cling to those same. Mark and I's brains light up when we hear the kind of these really catchy phrases. And I think in the midst of saying, I don't know why, you absolutely said why. I mean, I thought that was a good response, I feel. And I think when you were saying, Ian, I don't know, I just I do think it's intuitive to you. Community just runs through you. That's like who you are. So you never really, there's no why to it because it's just inherently something that I think you're good at creating. And so I love that. I love, though, that you said people need people. Here, Mark, just from a standpoint of thinking about community in a different way, here's a couple things that Ian said that I thought were really good. I don't think a lot of people think about communities being everywhere. I think the common thing of, like, when somebody says community, I think they'll always think about where they live, or, like they're going to think about a subset group of people, whatever that subset might be, where you live or your church or something, but he said community is everywhere. And I loved that. Right. I do think we do understand it at that next level, which is he said all community is a similar interest. So I don't know. I'm kind of, and then I wrote down something that I was thinking about. Maybe we're overthinking community. Maybe we don't understand how simple and powerful it is.
I think in a weird way, when I try to explain it to people, similar to like how you just asked me, like, why? When I try to explain to people, like, oh yeah, like to get people together, you got to do X, Y, Z. For me, it's so inherent that I don't understand how come people don't get it. I'm just like, when I have a hard time when I try to explain to somebody, like, I don't know how to get people to come to this thing or do this or do that. I'm like, make it inviting. Right. Like, and what is, and maybe some of it is, and maybe some of it is like, I didn't, I still really don't, but I didn't drink alcohol until 2 years ago. And it wasn't that I had a traumatic experience when I was young or anything like that. My mom's a drug and alcohol counselor. Like, maybe that's the reason, but also I know plenty of people whose parents are counselors, pastors, lawyers, police officers, whatever, who are off the deepest end. Because often it's like a rebellion thing, right? But for me, like, it just was never a thing in my household. So I just wasn't interested. And I didn't become interested until I started to really think about flavor development for coffee stuff. And people would always talk about bourbon, whiskey, rye and this and that. And I'm like, I have to understand that. So I gotta drink it. Right. And then I started to develop understanding and a taste for that thing, because now I'm like, I get it. But for me, it wasn't about I don't know. What am I trying to say? But Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that. You know, I got these concussions, y'all. I'll be snowboarding and stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I just when I used to throw house parties back in the day, and when I used to throw, like, around the time when I was at Nike for a bit. For those who don't know, toward the end of the time when I was looking at opening the coffee shop, I started doing these house parties with friends, and you know, just being in, you know, high school, college, you know, growing up, I just started to understand, like, when I go to a party, I don't have as good of a time as everybody else because everybody else is drinking, so they're having a good time, right? So what do I do? Or what do other people do? So I would just observe people. I would just sit there, people watch, all that kind of stuff, right? And so I didn't really know what else to do. So when I started to plan parties or throw parties, it was like, what can I do that's not revolving? Like, what can people do that where they're like not trying to get drunk, that doesn't revolve around alcohol, you know? And so I think just always, I'm like, I've always been to a lot of things that are not inviting. So how do I make them inviting and accessible for everybody? How do you make it a good time for more people? And so when people say stuff about, you know, like, how do we turn the city around, the city of Portland? How do we do this? How do we do that? Like, just, you need people. You know, they always say, like, you bring in when you bring in good, bad leaves. You know, bad doesn't want to be seen or whatever. So it's like, if we just have more people around, then that should do it, right? Okay, cool. Make it inviting for the people. And they're like, ooh, how? How do we get people here? I'm like, make it inviting, y'all. It's easy, right? Make it safe, make it fun, make it accessible, you know, and we used to have that. We don't got that anymore. Go back to it. It's pretty easy. You know, of course, it's not like an overnight thing, but
Yeah.
you got to agree that you suck at it first.
So true, right?
Yeah.
You got to admitting it's the first step.
That's right. That's
Admit
right.
you have a problem.
Admit you have a problem.
Mark, what do you think about the people need people? There's something so cool about that, because everything that he's saying kind of goes back to that. And I can't get my brain off of it. I really like it.
I love that. There's a couple of things that are all connected to that are really sticking with me. One, that people need people. Two, that community is everywhere, which to me sort of implies that we often think of community as commonality, right? So people are just looking for what they have in common. But if community is everywhere and people need people, that means that sometimes in the midst of looking for commonalities, we might actually be missing out on community. You know, right? You talked about parties, and I'm thinking about,
like double Dutch.
I remember,
like double Dutch.
Yeah, like,
I remember going out to clubs and dance and everything like that. And I don't drink. And it was always very hard because a group of people that I wanted to go out with, they always wanted to go to the bar, right? And when you go to the bar, there's like a small square where the DJ's playing, and there's a small square for you to dance on. And I'm dancing, going crazy, and everybody's like, oh, you should go to a club. This is not the place for you, right? But community was everywhere. And it was like, well, how can I still fit in without doing that? How can I recognize that there is community even when I think there's not commonality?
I love that. I love that a lot, Mark.
I think it's a part of it where being present and being honest about your like where you sit is something that, like, there's definitely those things in life where I realize I'm a relatively confident person. I feel okay in group settings and all that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of people don't, but as I sit in those places or sit in those settings, I can, like, pause for a second. I'm very outgoing. I also know how to keep my mouth shut, you know? And so, like, I can just, like, pause for a second and observe and be like, okay, I can fit into that spot. I understand that over there is a good conversation for me to be in, or whatever, and just, like, figure out how to essentially, like, assimilate, right? And really make it work and connect with people. But that's not necessarily, I know it's not a thing that everybody else can do, just something I think, I was just blessed with it. But I think that, a lot of the stuff that we do, like the field days, like the sports days that we've been hosting and stuff, is like, you don't know that you like it or that you dislike it until you try it. Like, I don't I'm not a big like sushi guy, but I try it every once in a while to see if like, do I like it now? Right? Or like pickles, like pickled things, not my favorite. But like I try it every once in a while, be like, do I like this one? You know? And maybe it's not that I hate pickled things, but maybe I just don't like those ones. Right. And so, being patient and actually just observing something is to me the way that you figure out like if you like it, how you're gonna like it, so and I think it's the same with with communities and with people. If you give somebody the chance, you never know. When I did the road trip, the Mark, you know about that?
No.
Or Cathey, do you know about that? Oh, okay. And so 2020 was 2020, and from the jump, what I'm saying, Breonna Taylor, all that stuff, George Floyd, all the protests and everything here. Kobe passed away, and like, so there was like a whole lot of things that were all happening. COVID, I forgot about that one. And literally forgot. And everybody was coming to me for like Ian, what's wrong with the world? What's wrong with the city? What's wrong with this? Like, how do we help Black people? What does Black Lives Matter mean to you? And like, the doors were getting beat down, respectfully, by people coming in and spending their guilt bucks and all that stuff. And they were just like, what should we do? How do we blah, 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 blah. And we were extremely busy. And I was like, this is fake. This is like false money, and this is like, it's going to last for a chunk of time. And it did just that. It lasted for like a month. And then, we did get some customers from it who are always, but yeah, I mean, it was like a whoop, and then it just like quickly tapered off. And just like during that time, I thought, I was like, I got to get out. I got to get out of Portland. And I had built this car. Cathey, I think maybe you've seen it, but it has an espresso machine, like a full cafe in the back. And I drove from Portland to Houston and back and served coffee out of the back of the car. We call it the drip whip. And I
have not seen it.
Oh yeah, the drip whip. I'll send y'all some photos. But as I was driving or I got ready to go, everybody was like, you got to be careful in the middle of America. You're a Black man and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, for sure. I got to be careful. I also got to be careful in the middle of Portland and in the middle of LA and in the middle of Seattle and Houston. Right. And so, but what people don't understand, because what we think is like their super conservative minds, is like everybody out there just they have a community, right? They have a thing that they stand for because that's all they know. And when you take the time to have a conversation, you realize that you actually probably agree on some stuff, right? We all agree that we need to protect our family and protect the jobs in our community so that we can give back and so that we can grow and so that we have something to pass down and we can be safe. We all agree. We just might not agree. Like if you're a farmer and I work in tech, when you say you need to save these farms, or when Trump's saying save the farms, of course the whole community of people is going to be excited about that, right? Because nobody else is saying save the farms, right? And so everybody else is like, F the farms. And so you're going to be pissed, right? So when we have a conversation about it, it's like, hey man, I'm just trying to take care of my family, right? And it's like, me too, right? And so it's like, okay, how do we both take care of our families, right? And so, a parent is a parent, right? Again, that's a community, right? It's all over, it's all over the place. We just we don't acknowledge that we see it. It's not even that we don't see it. It's just that we don't acknowledge that we see it until somebody brings it up. And like, if you have some people who maybe are in a disagreement and blah, 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 start talking about kids, they might become besties right there. So the big one for me is these people with these pets. I'm not a pet guy. Everybody with these pets, they start talking
That's a
about
bad
dogs.
thing to
I'm
be
like,
in Portland is somebody who's not.
yeah, they start talking
Oh, really?
about
Oh,
dogs.
Portland's
I could leave. Like, I'm
I'm
a
with
pet
you
mom. It's
though,
like, do you have
Ian.
actual kids? No, you don't have actual kids. If you
I'm
leave
gonna
that dog
say-
alone, the dog will be fine. If you leave a
I'm
child
gonna say
alone,
Ian
the
and
child's
I
gonna
are
die.
Yeah. I'm gonna say Ian and I are the only probably two people in Portland that think that way.
Yeah, and I know I got some people on the team who are like, you just hate dogs. I'm like, I don't hate dogs, I just don't love dogs.
Ah, I like that.
You know?
That's gonna be my new line.
But what do you have in common with dog lovers?
Ooh, that's
That we
really
are
good question.
people who are passionate about a thing. You like dogs, I like babies. Right? The
Mm.
same way that you get all excited when you see a dog, I get excited when I see a child, a human child, a person.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's all right. We both love unconditional love.
Yeah. I love that. We both love unconditional love.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a couple of similarities I'm seeing. Okay, and I'm gonna call it out because I know we're just having a conversation, but you know, if Ian, you were talking about this in, you know, in like a TED talk, or you're like explaining this as an idea, we definitely want to take the common idea that people think about community and we want to like blow their mind. We definitely don't want to tell them something that they think that they already know. And so I'm going to say a couple things that I think we've been saying. And then I think we should talk about how to angle it from a different way that will really make people think about it. So one of the things that's coming up is, Ian, you're talking about community is within you. It's a personal thing. You walk around and your ability to be able to sit back and feel very confident in any situation. You know, you said you can sit back and assimilate. And I was thinking, yeah, because when to be part of any community, there's a community of people that love to play chess in the park. There's a community of people that, you know, get together and want to do this or that, you know, and those seem to be like clearly defined lines. But you really made me think about how individual it is when you can just sit back in any scenario and be like, I can make a community right now. Give me 10 minutes. I'm going to assess the situation and I'm going to find a conversation. And I love that. So that's kind of one thing I was thinking is a lot of people think about it as, yeah, find the commonality. That's level 1. But what does level 2 and level 3 and level 4 look like? And if community is within us, how can people do what you're doing, Ian, especially if they're not as outgoing as you? And that was something that was coming up in my thought as well. And one other thing I'm going to mention, then we can kind of talk about it. You said something earlier that I love that we're like long past because you said so many other great things after, but I didn't want to let it go to the wayside. You didn't say this with your words, but I wrote down, think like an organizer, because you were saying like, oh, if you want people to come to something, just make it inviting, make it accessible, make it fun, make it, you know, whatever. And so in my mind, I was like, think for them. Like when you're doing something, you're like thinking about their needs. I don't know. That's something I just wanted to throw in the mix. What do you both think?
Yeah. I the thing for them, I agree with you. I worry about it going to the extreme of where like people where people are mad for me when something happens to me. You know, they're like, you should be mad that they did blah. Like I had a girlfriend back in the day, we were snowboarding, and you know, people say crazy stuff to Black people from time to time. And yeah, I mean, like goggles on, helmet. I think I even had on a face mask, gloves, right, and full jacket. Like you can't see anything about me. Maybe I didn't have on a face mask. Who knows? And I'm going to the chairlift, and there's a guy who rides by going to the lodge, and he just goes, "Can't we just have one sport?" And and I was like, of course, my quick reaction was, "Yeah, but you got to take it from me." And 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 my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "What? I can't believe he said." And I was like, "Doesn't matter." It's like, why are you mad for me? I took it, like I got what I needed to get out of it. It's not gonna stop me from snowboarding. Hopefully I get on the chair with this dude and we have a conversation. He realizes that I'm just trying to shred some pow just like he is. I just look different. That's it. And so, I'm just like, it doesn't even matter how I look. It shouldn't matter. I don't even like to be known as like a black, I think I said it, like, I don't like to be known as a black coffee shop owner. I don't like to be known as like a black anything, except for to people who are having a hard time, looking for their place or their person or their community, who are like, I don't fit here. And then they see me and they're like, oh, you look like me. Okay, cool. I can do it too then. Right. If that's what you need to connect to, sure. But it shouldn't be the deciding factor for somebody to decide, like, I don't want to be one of the best black coffee shop owners in the city. There's 3 of us. So I don't want to be top 1 of 3. I want to be, 149 of 500 or 197, whatever. I don't know. Usually I do a good job in that part, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not a speaker, guys. I don't know.
I would say in the top 3 is what I would say.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be in the top 3 overall.
That's what I'm talking about, though. I'm saying the top 3 overall.
So we're gonna raise the roof right here, girl. Go ahead.
I'm not saying top 3 of 3. That's not what I was saying.
Cathey, you know what I love? I love this phrase that you pulled out of Ian, which is community is within you. And Ian, as I listened to you tell that story, one of the things that I wrote down that you said is your response was, I'm just trying to shed some pounds just like him. Like, even in that moment, you found the connection, you found the community, but it all starts within, right? And what I love about that is it almost sounds like the antithesis, right? We don't think about community as the individual, but if community is within, if it starts with the individual first, then looking for the, I just love the I think dichotomy is my favorite word now. I just love the dichotomy of community is within the individual. That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
I don't know if either one of you had seen this, but there was one of those videos, kind of those social experiment videos that went viral. And it was probably like 10 years ago. It's older now, but it was pretty cool. They did it on the streets of New York, Mark. So it was in your part of town. And I think it was in Manhattan somewhere. And you're like, yeah, good things happen in New York. They put one of those big kind of, just like a big thing that had a bunch of balls in it. Those like these little jumping balls that kids play in, a pile of balls. And the like little plastic things. And they put 2 lines coming into this. And so 2 people would come in it at a time and they would sit in it and they would tell them they can't leave until they find commonalities. And sometimes the 2 people that would come into that might be a 12-year-old boy and a 91-year-old woman, right? And so they're sitting down and they're a few generations apart. They might come from different parts of the country or the world or whatever, it doesn't matter. And then they're having a conversation until they find the commonality. And every single person or every 2, set of people that went in, that they were finding like commonalities like crazy, because they were talking about common things, about family, about love, about things that they love to do, about things that were fun for them, things that were adventurous. And so if that's kind of the thing that we're talking about, it's like, and I know people say this is why I'm like, I think part of our work here is like, people always say we go to the divisions first. And so we hear that. And even though it's true, people can't hear that anymore because they've heard that so much. So how do we find a better way to say that? And then, that's always the issue of, it's always the issue of coming up with a really great TED talk or an idea, is like, say it in a way that people understand really well, but say it in a way that will actually also challenge their thinking. Because if they think they've already heard it, they almost dismiss it immediately. Go, I've heard that before. And so, but yeah, I love that. And so again, things that are still swirling in my head are like, people need people. It's just a beautiful way to say it. I also love this, the community is within you, because then it tells you like you have a whole array of communities, things that you don't even know about yourself. I never tried. Okay, this is like a crazy thing. I didn't even know this thing existed until like 6 months ago. And then I tried it like a month ago. Bocce ball. I've like never even heard of it until like 6 months ago. It's like you're throwing these balls and trying to get them as close as you can to the original one. It's kind of like a bigger version of but it's bigger version of marbles, isn't it? It's kind of almost the
Yeah,
same.
bocce is tight.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Never
Yeah.
heard of it. But I happened to be in California in this place where people were serious about bocce ball. Like they had bocce ball courts and they took care. So I found myself getting really into it, and because I'm really competitive, as you two know. And so I was in there and I was like, I was getting better at it. And then I found myself connecting. And it was such a weird thing. I would like, if you asked me 6 months ago, will you connect with a bunch of people that are playing bocce ball? No, what is bocce ball? So what things do we even have within ourselves? Like maybe it's adaptability too. Like what Ian's talking about, I love. He's like, I can go into a situation. I've never played bocce ball before, and I'm going to have good conversations with the people that are here. I'm going to make the most out of it. That's what I got from what you said, Ian. I'm going to be in a situation and I'm not going to not be part of it.
You know what I also heard though from that is, Ian, you also said that if you don't like something or you don't feel connected to something, it doesn't mean that you won't try to reconnect at a later point, right? Like I might not like seafood, and I don't like seafood, but you just opened my mind to, I didn't like it way back then.
I know.
But when have I given another opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And quite often with community, we shut it out, because I tried that. I went to the bar to try to dance. I don't want to go there no more. But maybe it was that bar, maybe it was that night, maybe it was that evening, whatever it was. But why not try it again?
And it didn't stop you from dancing, right? You're not dancing. You're not going somewhere. You're like, look, I had a good time at the bar dancing. Even if I was by myself, didn't matter. Doesn't mean that from now on, you're like, I'm never going to dance again, right? You're just like, I'm just not going to dance there because ain't nobody else dancing, right? Like they're not having a good time, whatever. I'm not having a good time either. I don't need to be here, right? But it doesn't stop you from dancing, right? Like that dude didn't stop me from snowboarding. Did that stick with me? Yeah. It mainly stuck with me because of her reaction. But I think like just whatever he had said, I probably just would have let it go, right? Because to me, I just was like, so whatever, bro. You say what you got to say. I'm still gonna hit this board. That jump is still mine, right? And I might see you jump off of it, do a little whatever 360. I might be like, I could do a 360 too. Okay, and you could have been the same. Like if I saw him in the street, that might be somebody who I rock with now, right? They could be a person who comes to dead stock all the time. I have no idea. Right. I mean, sometimes it be your own people, like that phrase, right? Like, sometimes that could have been somebody who loves me. Just don't even know that was me. So, but, I like those movies like Crash and stuff like that. And like Snatch, when things like swirl back around and you're like, wait a minute, what? Or like Saw, and you're all in this room and you're stuck and you're like, hey man, we in this room for a reason, dog. Like, what was it? And finally somebody's like, let's all be honest about it, And, like, it's like, I didn't do anything. It's like, clearly you did something, fool, like, so.
That's why we're here.
That's exactly, that's why we're here. Look at this community. So, but yeah, I mean, I wrote something down too. I think a lot of it, I think to me, you also have to be okay with not fitting in or not finding the place that like you have to be in a spot where you're like, hey man, I don't get this, right? You were like, you had never heard of bocce before, but you were like, y'all doing over there, and then you see like, oh, you're trying to get the ball closest to the other ball? I could get the ball close to the ball. Tell me how to do it, and so you had to be okay with being like, I don't understand this. I need somebody to tell me. Or maybe you try it and you just see how excited someone else is. And you're like, man, I'm excited for you, and I'm excited off of your excitement. So I'm gonna cheer you on. I feel like that's the Portland basketball fan. They don't actually know what's happening. They're just there. Like they put the ball in the basket and they're like, yay.
Yay!
Points for the team, points for the home team, and then, the Blazers are going a 20-25, point run. and then whatever other team will make a layup, and they just sit in the seats and they're like, "We're gonna lose." You know, it's like, you're not gonna lose, dog. You just went on a 25-0 run. You know, like, calm down. And then they lose, but that's beside the point. But
that's a whole nother thing about
Yeah.
Portland Trail Blazers.
If they had some real fans actually rally, and they might could fight a little bit, but this comes from a Sixers fan, so you know.
Oh man.
Or like our friend Jordan Dinwiddie said, we all are patient people in Portland because we've only had one championship. Like we're very patient.
We only have one championship. They're very patient.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, in New York, we're very patient,
y'all
too.
on the block. Yeah, y'all patient too. Y'all supposed to be the champion. Y'all supposed to be the number ones.
Yes. Mr. Williams, I got a question for you.
Mr. Williams, I got an answer for you.
I know you do. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Be okay with not fitting in to find your way in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like that too. I think that all of these things, we're in a what is it, like is it semantics? Like we're in a game of like these all these are, if we're talking about topics for speeches or for like TED Talks or whatever, right? Like they're all good positions, but I think the conversation that we're having is like, what is the uniquely me perspective on it, right? I mean, through COVID, the big one for me was like, people need people. I refused to lock the door. I refused to serve people outside. I was like, I will not close this door. This door will remain open because somebody needs to see somebody's face. And you don't know that you need to see somebody's face until you get in the door and you're like, man, I just realized I've been talking to people through plastic. I just realized that people have been leaving my food on the step that I paid my hard-earned money for, you know, and now they expect me to still tip and still do this and still do that. And I'm not knocking any of those companies. But for me, I'm like, we will not do that. And there was even conversations with people on the team where I just told them straight up, I'm like, yo, I'm not closing the door. So if it hurts your feelings or maybe you're worried about getting sick or whatever, I completely understand. I respect it. Please let me know so I can help you find another job. So, you know, and just being very serious about like, if somebody can't be here, if somebody just is taking a risk, right? Taking the risk of getting sick to come down here, they already know when they get here what it's about to be like, right? So I think people needing people, and then looping in the stuff about community and all of that, and like, you know, that the community is already within you. But I think it's just that, like, as much as you think that, you know, people need people, and then two people create community or whatever, two or more people. I don't know.
I love that. If this is an idea, right? If the idea really hinges on people need people, which, by the way, I absolutely love. I love the play on words. I love how simple it is. I love how powerful it is. I love how interdependent it is, because it's showing the interdependency of, it's not one person trying to infiltrate a community or a community trying to infiltrate a person or something like that. It's like an interdependency. What are some of the things that we would use to support that idea? And you know, even beyond what we talked about, what are some of those little intricate details that might make that idea more, not digestible, because that's an easy digestible thing, but really more powerful, I guess, that would really support it in a really good way?
It's almost like we need a complex thing for a simple perspective.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, that's funny. It doesn't need to be complex, but it's more than what's on the surface, right? Because anytime there's a simple idea, obviously when somebody's made something simple, whether it's a business model, what doesn't matter, whether, you know, any kind of system or business model or whatever, it's made to appear very simple. But that's where the beauty lies, is that it's really a complex thing. And then it looks so simple. And that's what makes it genius. If it's complex, everybody kind of stays away from it or doesn't work.
Yeah. Like an ice cream sandwich.
Right.
Wait, what?
Like it seems an ice cream sandwich. It seems very simple.
So complicated. It's so simple, but it's like when you have it and you look at it, you're like, how is this? Like, how long has this thing been around? Like, who made this?
How is it not melted together? How is it?
How is it not melted?
Still together?
And you're just looking at it, and then you bite it, and you're like, this is great, or just like a sandwich in general. Like, this is the greatest delivery system in the world. You know, and just like, my hands are clean. You know, ice cream sandwiches not so much, but you're like, my hands are clean. I get a chance to enjoy like something crunchy and something, you know, possibly depending. You know, I'm not a vegan or anything, like, so I get to enjoy some cheese and some freshly sliced meat and like a couple condiments, and like it's customizable and all that. But you're just like, you just look at it. Clearly, I love sandwiches, and you just look at it and you just go like, man, it can't get any simpler or any better than this. You know?
Yeah. And so that kind of so I'll ask the same question that Marc did, or I'll ask the same kind of in the heart of the same question that Marc asked at the beginning. And this one will go a little bit more to like, why, Ian, do people need people?
I think that y'all need to stop asking these hard hitting questions. You know, the funny thing about these hard questions is that I'm used to having an answer immediately for things. And so when you ask me, my first reaction is to answer with like a BS answer, not a BS answer, but just like let me just give you an answer. But I'm like, man, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know. It's like when you're in your room and you're like folding your socks, and like you throw your socks into the laundry basket and you pretend like it was like a game-winning shot. And then you say like the crowd goes wild. Like, why do you add the crowd? Right? Why? Well, who cares about the crowd if you didn't want somebody to know that you did it? Right? And so is it like, would that basket have been as tight? You know? Would it have mattered as much? And so it's the if a tree falls in the forest doesn't make a sound kind of thing, you know, if nobody's around, that like it's those kind of things. And you just think about the connectivity of like, of course it makes a sound if nobody's around to hear it, right? Like the animals are around to hear it, because then the animals wouldn't know to be fearful unless it made noise, right? Like, and then like, you know, insects and like all of it is an ecosystem, right? We're all an ecosystem. All of this is one big system. And like, I always wonder how kids figure out, when you're a child, like, how do you, and this is like a conversation that I have with friends, like everyone, like especially my friend Amir. We have these kind of conversations all the time. Like, how do you decide who's going to be your friend when you go to school? Is it when you get in the classroom because you might see a jersey? Oh, I like that team too. It might be skin color. It might be a haircut. It might be whatever. But you see somebody and you're like, oh, I want to be that person's friend. And just think of the amount of people who you also try to be friends with who don't want to be friends with you or whatever. But like, how do people decide like what hairstyle works on their face? You know, it's because you've seen somebody else most likely with it, or you've seen right. So like, we all need to, I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, you get into the like, who's better, who has and who doesn't have, like you get into that kind of conversation. But I think we need opportunities to fit in. We need opportunities to be accepted. We need examples. We need to be needed. You know, we need like all those things. We need love. appreciation, you know, understanding, but you can't get, this goes back to the dog thing. Like, yeah, dogs are, you know, they, for people, they provide purpose a lot of time, and I understand, or provide like support, but you still need, I think that we all just need, we need people around us. We don't necessarily have to engage, but you need to be within the ecosystem of the person or of people in order to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
I hope y'all wrote that down.
I saw your face, Marc, by the way.
Just was.
I was just writing down so many different things, and I love how you just kind of rattled off all of these different things that we need. And I'm still hung up on throwing the sock in the hamper, and that's so true, right? It's like you imagine the crowd, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
Because people do need people, right? And we're always in search of that, right? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just like you're just imagining, you are adding validation, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Hold up, it froze. Oh, why we gotta be freezing? My bad. Did it freeze? Are we good? We back?
Oh no, we heard you.
That's that coffee shop internet.
Like,
that's that coffee shop internet.
The coffee shop internet.
Yeah, the coffee shop internet, man. You know, there's dead broke out here. No, we're dead stuck. But yeah, like, you know, you're adding, you know, you're just like, you're adding support, right? Like, you're never the away team. You don't shoot it and then say like, and I shut the crowd up, you know. So you're right.
I shut the crowd up.
Yeah,
that's
right.
So true.
Yep.
Right? You're not throwing in the imaginary basket to shut up the crowd.
No.
You're throwing it
to make them go wild, right? To make them react. Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm so glad you said that, because actually one of the things I was thinking too was when you were saying when you were saying this, Ian, about like, how do you choose your friends, and like, is it that you walk in and you see that they're wearing a jersey of a team that you like? But then I was also thinking, I go, but there's the invisible community connections. There's just that energy sometimes, and that's a little bit of that too. Like when you throw a shot up and you make it and the crowd goes wild, you're doing it for the energy. It's not that you know anybody in that crowd or that there's anything in particular. It's for that energy that you feel, that connection that you can feel to so many people in one little moment. It's kind of a micro community moment, if you will. Just kind of cool to think about.
That's
that you could even create community moments. Wow, that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Interesting.
Which could turn into communities, right? What if you did think about the way that Ian was talking about, of creating these little micro communities or micro community moments, because then they can turn into communities themselves. You know, it starts with the thought and ends up, I mean, Ian started Deadstock with a thought, like a thought that became this crazy, amazing reality.
Yeah. I mean, and really the thought was that I felt uncomfortable in these other places when I went to go hang out with my friends. And I felt like me and my friend, whoever it was that I was meeting with, and it's one specific friend, which oddly enough is one of those, he's one of those people who, it was a guy who I used to work with at Nike. He worked in Nike Canada. So whenever he would come to town, we would hang out. But the way I met him, oddly enough, is through the same person who I was dating when we were snowboarding, because she was Canadian. And they had like a all Nike Canada thing hang out where they all went playing hockey, of course, go figure. Here in Beaverton, and he was just standing off to the side. And I was like, I just saw him across the room and I was like, I'm gonna go be friends with that guy. He looks cool. And I just walked over to him and I was like, what's up, man? I'm Ian. You just look really cool and I want to be your friend. And he was like, you're crazy, man. My name's Jazz. Nice to meet you. And that's my dog. That is my, and like, for real, I just was like, you look cool. I don't understand any of what's happening here, but she's going to go play hockey and you look like you're not playing because everybody else got their clothes on and you don't. So I know you about to be sitting over in the bleachers. I'm going to sit next to you, you know? And he was like, all right, let's do it, you know? And, but yeah, whenever Jazz would come to town, we would go to coffee shops and people just treated us funny when we would go to coffee shops. And I was like, I'm tired of getting treated like this, man. I'm going to open up my own coffee shop so I can hang out with Jazz whenever I want. And anybody else who wants to come hang out with us too. And we could talk about shoes and this and that, whatever else we want to talk about because we can. So, you know, because we want to. And so that was where that was really how it all started, was hanging out with Jazz and being like, dog, this sucks. And he's like, this does suck, you know? Yeah.
See, that was like a micro community moment too, right? Like is this like a little tiny thing that, and so many people connected to it. Like Deadstock's the bomb, Mark. You don't even know. Like you go there any given day and there's like community, people hanging, and you know, it's awesome. I love that. I don't know. I love that so much.
There's yet another reason for me to come to Portland.
That is true. This guy's got to come back to Portland. He's only been in, yeah, exactly. Come on. He's only been back once. Well, I'm gonna end my piece of it with this thought, because Ian said something, Mark, and I'd love to hear yours really quick. You know, that the story that you have with Jazz, that he, like, you saw him and were like, he's cool. Like that happened to me at Niagara Falls. Remember, like I met this guy from Italy and we were the only two people that were in line. And he asked me if this was the line to Niagara Falls. And now we're like really good friends. And we have all these things that should go against us. The language barrier, of course, the distance barrier. Of course, when I told him I lived in Portland, he's like, I don't know where that is. Never having been, you know, anywhere on the West Coast at that point in his life. We became such good friends in that moment that he came back to Portland and walked a bridge with me in Portland and visited me. And so we all kind of have these moments where it started with a micro moment and it turned into, it hit on that thing of people need people, and communities can start with 2 or more people, and can be anywhere, in anything, in any connection. I don't know. What's your story, Mark? I'm sure you have one.
The one that comes to mind is when I took a flight to Malaysia, and it was my first time really flying overseas that far. And I was on a plane sitting next to this guy, and then I don't even remember how we struck up a conversation, but we did. And it was a connecting flight, and I'm so juvenile to admit that I had never really done a connecting flight. I didn't know where to get my luggage. Turns out I didn't have to get my luggage because they just move your luggage onto the next plane. Hello. But he stuck with me until that moment. And you know what? I don't know where he is on the planet. I may never see him again. But in that moment, we create a community, and I'll never forget it. Right? And we've had an amazing conversation about community. And we want to let you go off and continue to build your community at Deadstock, which I'm going to get to when I get to Portland. But just take a moment.
Man, you better come on.
Since we started this conversation, what has changed? What has evolved? What has transformed for you? What's new for you in your head about this whole idea around community?
I don't think I understood that I like to build it. And I think I understand that I like to be part of it, but I don't think I really let it settle that I do it because I need it. And I think that in a crazy way, it's like a friend of mine recently wrote a book. It's called The Power of Empathy. And his whole thing is like, you know, instead of like talking about people having empathy for someone else or whatever, it's more like you can't talk about empathy until you live it, right? And until like you give yourself empathy, you have empathy on yourself, and you really like let things go for you. You can't expect, you know, for others to do it as well. So you can't be like, man, how come you're not blah blah blah? It's like, well, you know what, you gotta take care of that for you too. And so I think that's kind of maybe where I'm at right now. I just started reading the book yesterday, or I guess this morning, like 1 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, just like really understanding that, like, as much as I think that it's like I'm doing this for y'all, you know, I have said clearly that I'm doing it for me as well, right? But I haven't really been as deep and as like upfront about saying like I'm doing it because I need it.
I love that.
You need it. Cathey needs it. I need it. That's why we
right.
do these things. That's why we do these things. Yes, most definitely. And Mr. Williams, you know, I call you that affectionately because that's just what the children's called me. So I got to call it to you too. Mr. Williams, it's been awesome being in your community. I'm glad to continue to be in your community. Cathey, you already know the deal. You most definitely know the deal. This has been awesome to have this conversation. Thank you so much, Ian, for spending this time with us and really shedding the light on what it means to be in community, to create community, and to understand that not only do people need people, but we need people too, right? To anybody who's watching, hope you enjoyed this conversation. Oh, wait, Ian, real quick, tell us, how can people find out about you and Dead Stock?
Man, this is the spiel I know all too well. You know what I'm saying? Ian Williams, I appreciate y'all for listening. You know, follow us, deadstockcoffee.com, at deadstockcoffee on Instagram and on all the other social things. You know, I even got threads. Sometimes I'll be on there, maybe not. You know, 408 Northwest Coos Street, downtown Portland. We in Old Town. We're not actually in downtown. You know, you'll see when you finally make it, my brother. But yeah, you know, Deadstock Coffee, we out here. You know, we out here. We for the people. Come see us in Tokyo if you're out there in a couple weeks. Come on now. That's right. You know, that's right.
Let's go.
You know what? We're raising the roof in 2024. We're bringing it back.
Hell yeah.
Most definitely.
Love it.
Oh, well, you all heard it here. And listen, to anybody out there who needs to be in the community of an idea conversation, hit Cathey and I up at It's About to Go Down show. We'd love to have a conversation with you or anybody you know. We invite you all to be a part of this community. And with that said, join us the next time because we're going to have a good time on It's About to Go Down.
About to go down.